Okay, time for number 19. Today is Sunday, October 10th, 2021. I'm going to try to make today's a little shorter because I got a lot of work to do today. But I just wanted to start off by talking about what I ended yesterday's video with. I said something that is ridiculous. And by ridiculous, I mean worthy of ridicule. Like actually ridiculous. So I wanted to just kind of elaborate on it a little bit and maybe explain myself a little better, because I don't disagree with what I said, but I think I didn't quite say it clearly. The last few minutes, the entire thing, I would like to kind of let me just go over it. So I said that I wanted to settle the differences between white supremacists and black people, which I understand is not something I'm capable of. I mean, like in the literal sense, and whatever, how many numbers there are, however many millions there are on both sides, like they're not listening to me, this channel with 8 subscribers, you know, they don't care what I say. So I don't mean literally settle the differences between two groups of people. What I mean is more in a philosophical context. Like if you were to imagine an argument between a black intellectual and an intellectual white supremacist, or, you know, which, hold on, let me explain. So, I've said this in previous videos. What has been happening on the internet and in our culture in general is that every conversation about race and racism is, I mean, the conversation's allowed to happen, but only from certain people and only up to a certain point. And the people that would argue for the white supremacist side, the people that would argue for a racist point of view, like a perspective where they would say, no, this race is better, or ones that would say, nah, fuck that race, you know, like those people are real and they exist and they're human beings, but they don't get the chance to express themselves. They did. I talked about this in a previous video, so I'm not going to go back into it, but there was a page on Reddit where they could do that, and it was banned many years ago. And now that conversation has moved to places like 4chan. I think 4chan is the only place where I've seen online where people can do this openly. And so I know what people are going to think about me, right? Talking about this stuff, like, why the heck is a 28-year-old guy who looks like this? Why do I think that I should? Why do I think I can? Why am I do think it is a goal of this channel to try and settle those differences. I think that I'm not going to say I have a unique set of experiences. I have a rather unique set of experiences that I think puts me in a good position to do this. But more importantly, I think that I'm the kind of person who is willing to venture out into this kind of dangerous territory. And I'm hoping, my hope is that I'm, you know, obviously I'm talking about things that could get this YouTube channel banned. I understand that. I understand that this is dangerous territory. I understand that I'm walking through a minefield, basically, and I could step on a landmine at any point. I'm hoping that the fact that I'm attaching my face and my identity to this, like, my name is Matt Denny, Matthew Denny. I am a real person who you can meet in real life. This is what I look like. And I really hope that this kind of authentic sincerity means something to somebody when they get upset at me. You know, like, I'm not here to troll, you know, I'm genuinely attempting to solve a problem that I see. And the problem that I see is, I mean, we have conflicting beliefs about race in this country. There are a lot of conflicting beliefs. I think even within the blue team and within the red team, there are conflicting beliefs. And this is what I've said in previous videos. I think part of the issue is that we're not having the conversation. We are just cutting off a large chunk of the people that would be in this conversation, and we're only seeing one half. It's not even half. To me, it's like 1/10 of it, because it's just racism bad, go away. bigotry bad, go away, you know? And we don't hear their arguments. And so I've said this before, I think it's weakening the liberals. I believe the liberals are no longer suited, like the ones that are my age or younger especially. I mean, even people older than me, the ones who have just lived in this culture where nobody ever hears the argument for racism. And there are arguments for racism. I mean, I'm not going to say they're right, but they exist. You can make arguments for it. And some of them are strong arguments. And I know what that sounds like, but the only way I can explain this now, the only place where I can recommend people to read about this are places where nobody wants to go. Because we've kicked them off all the decent platforms. You're not going to have anybody on YouTube. You're not going to have anybody on Reddit. Nobody's on Twitter arguing this stuff. The only place where you're going to find racist people making racist arguments is on 4chan, or even crazier sites. I mean, you can go to straight up white supremacist sites. What's the one? There's that one famous one. I always forget what it's called. Thunderstorm. It's something with a storm. I went there once. Not a fan. But there is a site, 4chan, and it's like truly a place of free speech. And what happens regularly on that site that I've seen. And like, please, if you find this stuff offensive, stop listening to me, please. Like, forgive me for talking about this. All I'm doing is stating things that have occurred, right? There are... I'm just going to say it. So there's going to be regular occurrences of this. There are places where somebody will go on there and they will say, this is an N-word hate thread, right? 3 words. They're just going to say N-word hate thread. And they post some video of something, or they post like a graph, or like they post something that just is a negative bit of news about black people, right? You know, and I'm not saying you could do this with any race of people. You can find negative things about any race. You find a video of some white guy beating up some other guy, you know, and like say, look, white people suck. So you can do this with any race. But on 4chan, these threads are popular, and they will get hundreds of replies, and people will just gang up, and they'll just chuck out memes and videos and like everything you can possibly think of. And truly, white supremacist content, right, comes out, and it goes onto that thread. So if you want to find the arguments for racism, that's where you look. And the thing is, I think if you want to be a powerful person, if you want to be somebody who can actually handle the hardships of life, whether you're white or black, if you want to be an intellectual, if you want to be a philosopher, if you just want to be somebody who's not fragile, right, who won't just fall over at the sight of an offensive picture, right, then you need to expose yourself to this. It's like working out. It's like you're going out into the woods and you're experiencing the actual chaos of life, and you're learning from it. And I think this is part of it. Like I need to tell an example of a friend of mine. I don't know if I should use his name, maybe just his first name. He was a good friend of mine from Los Angeles. We hung out a lot. I mean, we lived together for a period of time. We drank together, we ate together, we rampaged through Los Angeles together. And he was a black guy. And we were good friends. He had a profound impact on my life. And he told me the story, and this stuck with me. I still think about this sometimes. He was raised in South Carolina, I think, most of his life. And he talked about how when he was growing up, when he was a kid, this is a story he told me. He said that, so first of all, he was raised religious, you know, which I think goes for many, I mean, it goes for a lot of kids in this country in general, but especially in the South, I think. So he said that he had a friend who was white when he was growing up, like when he was a kid. And this was a friend of his, a good friend, and this friend of his said, black people came from monkeys. That's what he was told when he was a kid, and it broke his heart, because a friend of his said, basically, somehow white people, I mean, it's, so this is what's interesting about this, is because I had to tell him, look, Rondell, you did come from monkeys. But so did I, like we all came from monkeys. That's what makes that interesting to me, is that this white kid in his childhood was using this fact as sort of he was using a true fact. I mean, I know when I say came from monkeys, that's an oversimplification. I personally believe in the story of evolution. I believe that humans descended, we have common ancestry with monkeys at least, right? Common ancestry. So to say that we came from monkeys is more or less true. It's a simplification, but for the sake of this conversation, it's true. And so I think that this white kid used a piece of real knowledge as an argument for racism, right? And Rondell was not equipped for this. So it hurt his feelings. He was hurt by it. Understandably. Quite understandably, right? However, had he been equipped with the proper knowledge, that would have had no effect on him, right? If he had been exposed to this, I mean, this one's a tough one because we're talking about evolution, and I know that a lot of people still struggle with the idea that we are related to monkeys. So, which is another reason that this whole race argument gets so complicated, is because it is true that different populations of the human race have been isolated from each other, and that's why we look different. That's why my skin looks like this, is because my ancestors were further away from the equator, so they didn't get as much sunlight, and this is the theory. It has a lot to do with just your distance from the equator. Is that, wherever my ancestors lived, there was less sunlight, and we need vitamin D to survive, and so the melanin in the skin reduced throughout the generations, and my power is that I can absorb vitamin D better, and a black person's power is that they're more resistant to sunburn. It's like, you have to, all right, I need to stay on track here. I think that you have to expose yourself to arguments for racism in order to understand, in order to get to the conclusion that racism is wrong. You need to be fully exposed to all of it. Otherwise, you're just going to be left weak. And when you do get exposed to that argument, whether it's by accident or it could be anywhere, it can just come at you anywhere in life. You'll get exposed to it, and it'll just knock you off your feet. It'll just kill you. It'll destroy you. You need to be exposed. And so my goal in this channel, because I think a lot about these things. I think a lot about evolution, where humans came from. Like any other American, ever since George Floyd, I think a lot of us have been thinking about race and racism quite a bit. And I'm one of those people. And I know how insane it sounds, but I really think we can talk our way through it. I think that if you took a white supremacist who was not just... So I looked up the definition of bigot. A bigot, there's a couple different definitions, but from what I understand, it's somebody with an unreasonable hatred for a group of people. It's tied in with hatred. It's some combination of hating and being unreasonable, like unreasonable hatred. I don't know if you have a reasonable hatred that makes you not a bigot, or if you have like an unreasonable dislike, does that make you a bigot? I don't know. I don't think I'm a bigot. I don't think I have any unreasonable hatred of any group. I've been trying to say that I always hesitate to just come out here and be like, I'm not racist, because people are going to disagree with me. They're going to tell me I'm racist no matter what I do. And it's impossible for me to convince somebody. But I think I can reasonably say that I'm not a bigot. I think I can say that with confidence, and call anybody who says I'm a bigot is a liar. I just think that that's... At least I'm not intentionally a bigot, it's not conscious. So, yeah, I wanted to say that Um, what I would love to see happen, what I would love to see happen in real life, like actually on a real platform. Like imagine Coleman Hughes, who's a conservative black man. He's a guy. He's like, I think he's younger than me, but he's a guy that always comes into every. He seems to come into these conversations very prepared and studied, and he has statistics and facts like on hand. He's a really reasonable guy, and I would love to see a conversation between him and a specific kind of white supremacist, somebody who also comes in with facts and an understanding of science. Like I want somebody who isn't who there are the white supremacists who use sort of a biblical explanation. I explained that in yesterday's video, that some people think that white people are like certain descendants of biblical characters, and that black people are descendants of like the cursed biblical characters. And I mean, if you're going to use that as your defense for racism, then I don't know how to address that. I really don't, because you kind of have to attack the entire Bible to address that. But I want somebody, because I've seen these threads on 4chan, and I know that there are people who will use evolutionary arguments for racism. They will use scientific arguments for racism. And I want to see those arguments battled out against the same exact types of people, but against racism. I want to see it fully broken down, and I've never seen that happen before. I've gotten glimpses of it in some of these places where you have the real racists and you'll have real liberals, but even on 4chan it doesn't happen, because nobody has the patience to go on 4chan, because you just get blasted by trolls the second you make any argument. Like I've seen people go on there and be like, "You guys are idiots. Here's why racism's wrong," and like the first 10 comments are just N-word, 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 and it's like, okay, we're not having a conversation here. Like this isn't happening. I've seen glimpses of it. But what I want to see is human faces having human conversations back and forth between these ideas. And then if everybody just listens to that and like powers through it, because it's going to contain offensive material, because you're going to have one guy on one side saying, look, we've been separated for tens of thousands of years, you know, these evolutionary changes have happened, and then they're going to talk about things that are going to offend people. And I want to hear that against somebody who knows what they're talking about on the liberal side. I want to hear this conversation. I want to see it played out. And I don't see it played out anywhere. And so, you know, like I've been saying, I know it sounds a little bit ridiculous. Maybe it's like a quixotic obsession of mine. Maybe I'm shooting for something far too away from me. But if it's not going to happen anywhere else, I'm going to do it here. And I'm sort of just talking to myself, so I'm going to have to take both stances, which is going to mean, oh my God, it's going to mean that I'm going to have to talk about things that will guaranteed get me in trouble. Absolutely get me in trouble. Like, there's no way for me to talk about it without somebody being like, fuck this guy. I'm going to get reported for racism. And I'm telling you I'm not racist. I'm saying that. I'm telling you that. I am not racist. Like, I don't think I am. I don't think I'm a bigot. I don't think I'm racist. I don't have any ill feelings towards any particular group of people. I might have internalized racism. You know, I might have unconscious racism. I get that. So, you know, people are going to accuse me of racism no matter what I do. So it's like, are you calling me a liar? Are you saying that I'm evil and I don't know it? Are you saying that if you're going to call me racist, could you at least explain how I can not be racist? Beyond just like the shitty typical stuff where people put a black square on Instagram. Like, that doesn't prove you're not racist. The thing where people like do a knee for BLM. Fuck those people. Fuck those people. It doesn't prove shit. It doesn't prove a single goddamn thing other than you're willing to just make like a little tiny action that shows that like, oh, I'm on the team of the black people. It's like, no, you're not. You're just playing the social game. That's just social signaling. That doesn't mean a single goddamn thing, to me, at least. To me. Well, I mean, you can clearly have racist people engage in that stuff. It doesn't prove anything. So, I mean, I talked about this yesterday. How does one prove that one is not racist? What do I do? How do I, in a court of law, if it was down to like some crazy courtroom where I'm like sitting in the middle of a room and there's like hundreds of people in chairs around me in a big auditorium and they're all deciding, is Matt Denny racist? Is he a bigot? Like, what evidence do I bring forward for myself? What evidence would somebody else bring forward on both sides? I would ask my black friend to come forward and defend me, but I don't want to put him on the spot like that. You know, he puts himself at risk. Like, but you know, and even having a black friend doesn't prove you're not racist, right? There's really no proof. I mean, there's like almost no way for me to prove it, which is so interesting. Why is that? How come a person can't prove they're not racist? Like, what would they have to do? Like a lifetime of volunteering on behalf of minority communities? Like, would that prove you're not racist? Like, even that doesn't prove it in the end. So that's why I keep saying speech. I just think, I mean, if I'm talking to somebody genuine on the other side of this, if people are listening to me, I just hope that they understand that I'm a human being. I hope that they can understand that I'm like legitimately attempting to speak about things that are a little bit beyond me. You know, I can't end racism. I can't actually settle the differences between these groups of people, but I can talk about it. And I've said this 1,000 times. I think the talking is what does it. I think in a magical universe, if I could take a white supremacist and a black person and lock them in a room together, and I could moderate the conversation, that I could eventually settle whatever their difference is. I do believe that's possible, because I think their differences. I think that they, unless it's religious, unless this guy on the one side says, yeah, God says black people are bad, like then you have to like disprove God to like convince this person, which makes this a much tougher conversation. But I think that there's more agreement than people kind of realize, and the reason that people think there's so much disagreement is just that we've just been screaming over any arguments that have happened. Like, it's just la 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 la, racism's bad, bigotry's bad, la la la, and you get people that it's not the answer. The answer is not ban the bad guys, you know? It's bring them into the room, talk to them, and figure out what's up. Let them express themselves. So, okay, what? Wow. That's enough for this one. Bye.